And gentlemen, I'm going to do another demo today, or at least start of another demo today. I got a different picture over here, and obviously from the last one when I was doing that small metallic cat. This is the Apple Watch. Now the major issue here too is that in this case a lot of the real black in the picture, the really dark black of the paper in the picture, is going to be in the actual watch itself. A lot of the work that we have to do is actually on the background in this particular one. And I say, Mr. B, I got to do the background too? Yes, Mr. B, you do have to do the background as well. And I'm going to demo a little bit of that and get started on this one, just to kind of give you an idea. Hey, listen, it's not a whole lot of like hard work to do over here, even though we have a lot of area to cover. So how are we going to do that? What's the best way to do that? Now, for the first part is, if you have a really large section that we're going to have to add some, I guess, lightness or brightness to, well, the one thing I'll tell you, especially in the background, is get in there and erase your grid lines. Now, what I would recommend to you is, instead of using the sort of plastic eraser like or the rubber one that's basically attached to the back of a pencil, or the black one that I may have given you, I'll recommend taking the kneaded eraser, the one we use for charcoal, and using that. You will notice when you erase on the black paper, it will leave some marks on there. You'll see those marks. But understand, if those areas are getting covered with charcoal anyway, really not a big deal. Now, for the background and for the foreground, for the object itself, I think one of the things that I sort of tried to hammer home was, you should work on small sections at a time and work your way across the page. I'm a righty, so I'm going to start in the top left-hand corner and work my way down and across. That way I'm not dragging my hand over my work. With that being said, I don't want to work on this background box by box. It's going to end up making it look like a giant mosaic. All right, when I mean by mosaic, like it's all made of little tiles. Now, what he has in this particular picture is a very subtle and even gradation from a pretty dark black to a medium sort of gray. And remember, in this picture, if we look at it, we look at the actual part of like maybe the watch band, those areas down there are the areas that are really the black of the paper. And if it happens to be really black, well, then you just leave it the paper itself. But for these other areas like the background where they have some shades of gray, we've got to add some white. Now, the one thing I'll tell you about filling in a large area, it's really important that you fill that area in evenly. The more streaky and all over the place that area is, well, the worse it'll look like in the grand scheme of things. You notice the way I'm working? I'm using the side of the pencil mostly, so a lot of surface area is touching. I'm not choked up on the pencil all the way down the end. Really hard to use it in a light, even way if I'm holding it all the way by the end. I'm holding it down by the other end. I'm really not gripping it tightly, and I'm really just trying to use it back and forth loosely. By doing it this way, I'm really just lightly pressing down on the paper. Really, the weight of the pencil is what's doing most of the work. And that way I could try to put down this first layer of charcoal as evenly as possible. Now, it's a pencil, and inherently, none of it's going to come down super even. You're always going to see some of your marks. I think you can all see how my marks are going diagonally across. But we still want to try to put them down as evenly as possible. The blending we'll do will help straighten that out. And one of the things I'll recommend in doing a large area like this, where it's all basically a very similar or slightly different shade of gray, try to work by going in the same direction. So if you don't want to go like diagonally left to right, then don't. If you want to go up and down, go up and down. But the one thing I'll tell you that will probably make this thing hard to look at is if you go left to right one place and then up and down the other place and side to side a different way. If you change those angles often, you're creating little like patchwork in the background, and quite frankly, it's not going to look great when you try to blend that all out. Then as far as the blending goes, one of the things I'll recommend obviously before is to change directions often, but one of the other things you want to think about is going against the grain. Now, what do I mean? Like if this was a wood grain, you see my marks are going left to right diagonally. Going against the grain would be doing more of my work up and down. By going up and down, and in this case I'm going up and down in little circles, by going up and down, I kind of get rid of some of the streakiness of that initial mark that I made. You can look right now and you can see the areas that I'm blending, and again, a big part of the surface area of this blending stump is touching the paper. Because it is, and because I'm predominantly going up and down and against the grain, it's smoothing out a lot of the marks that I made. Now, if you shade left to right and blend left to right, what you're going to find is you're going to make it even streakier looking than that. So try to follow what I'm showing you. Again, doing it this way, the things that I show you on how to do them, are hopefully helpful hints that make your drawings look good. So again, go against the grain, try to put down that charcoal as evenly as possible. Don't do it tiny box by tiny box. As you can see, a lot of your pencil mark anyway is getting covered up, or eraser marks, you don't really see them. Change directions often, use the little circles, but again, go against the grain of what you've done. Now, if you're coming back to your thing and you have some darker areas inside of your actual object, you can always shape them up with one of those harder rubber erasers. Again, if a lot of this is getting covered up on the inside with white, I wouldn't worry about this, but if you have dark black areas, I would get back in there and I would erase some of that grid work with my kneaded eraser. I'll do a little bit more here. That's all you get for free, Dawson. But what I will tell you, for those of you who have light or middle gray or medium gray areas in your background, don't ignore your background like it's not some part of the drawing you have to do. Do that early. Do that as you're working across your thing. Don't just focus on the object itself. Make sure you get that. And if you see an area that's black and other areas are lighter than it, well, that means any area lighter than black is going to need a little bit of white. Lighten this up just a little bit. Again, the background might not be the most exciting part of your drawing, but is just as important. If you don't do that, and you don't do it as well or give it as much attention as you give the so-called detailed, exciting parts, well, in the end, things not going to look good anyway. Now, I don't want you going around there and outlining things with the charcoal pencil, but in a case like this, you do want to look for where do you have a nice, clean, crisp edge. And in this case, there is a decent edge on the edge of the watch band. You can always use an eraser too to kind of sharpen up the edges. Always use the eraser to erase back some of the black. Alright, I think that's about all I'm going to do on this one. But just to sort of hammer home the point is that the watch band on this particular piece in the background are not the most dramatically detailed or exciting parts to draw. In fact, overall, it's a rather simple picture. It doesn't have a lot of crazy detail. That being said, what's there, no matter how, seemingly insignificant or plain it is, still needs the same care and attention that if it was a portrait your nose would or your eye would. Doesn't mean that you just kind of toss off that part and just do it as rapidly as you can. It needs the same care, the same attention to detail, and the same sort of effort in it to make it look good. So if you do see grays in your background, make sure that you shade those things in. If there are areas that are black on your picture, well, they stay black. And then anything else that you could find and that you could do over here that you see, those things are areas for you to invest time and energy in. Again, try to make your marks even, especially when you're doing big, evenly shaded sort of areas. Try not to press down super duper hard. Try not to make it super duper streaky. Take your time with them. Again, every piece of this thing gets the same amount of attention and care, even if it's not the most quote-unquote important part of the picture. And that goes for everything from minor details and sort of plain areas to the stuff that is the most exciting to look at and the most detailed. All right, so that's the start of my watch.